they knew what Oshi-san and I were talking about. Why? How? No, that wasn't important. Thinking about it now, all of it could have been overheard from the beginning when Oshi-san met me. Just as Mion said, I couldn't hide anything. Then, what are they trying to tell me? That part was obvious. They were warning me not to say anything unnecessary. What did they deem unnecessary? I only talked with Oshi-san about one thing, and they were warning me that it was unnecessary. What was it that Oshi-san talked to me about? The incidents involving Oyashiro-sama's curse that occurred every year weren't individual cases, but they were connected as a whole, as well as the fact that that there may be multiple perpetrators within Hinamizawa. No, more precisely, that Mion, Rena, Sakuto and Rika-chan were all suspicious. Is that what they were warning me against? What kind of nonsense am I talking about? I hit my own face hard enough to let out a loud slap. If only that would wake me up from this nightmare, but for some reason it felt like I was punching a blanket. It was almost laughably painless. Calm down, Keiichi Maimara. When did I become such a pessimist? I know you're so happy in like the beginning of all this. Calm down. Settle down and sort things out. The reason Mion knew I was eating lunch with Oshi-san was probably because somebody from Hinamizawa just happened to be there at that time. They must have told Mion that I was there. That made the most sense. Plus, come to think of it, she didn't ask me where I ate lunch, did she? She only asked, was it good? She was in the restaurant, wasn't she? You just didn't notice. Well, that said she was in school, so it wouldn't make any sense for that. Or maybe she just likes the restaurant food. They were just curious since I was together with someone not from Hinamizawa. It's not as if they had any ulterior motives. That's it. That has to be it. Think about it that way. It was the same with Rena. I was just being strangely ambiguous about when I met with Oshi-san, and Rena just correcting me on that. That's when I was bewildered by the change in character from the usual mild-mannered Rena, and I was just startled by it. That was the most natural way of thinking about it. It felt like my mind was mixed up like a tangled mess of spaghetti. Deep red marinara sauce would have poured out of my nose and ears if you squeezed my head. That is like a horrible visualization, that is. Thinking that, I suddenly felt like vomiting. I'm not surprised. I really didn't want that to happen, so I stopped holding my head. Lately, I had no idea what anyone was saying. When that time with them was fun, but it didn't feel like there was any sort of hidden agenda. I really do think that there are a good bunch of people. When I just moved here, I couldn't make heads or tails of everything. They were really kind to me. Rena was really kind and always looked after me. As long as that strange affliction didn't rear its ugly head, she was pretty cute. She was really pretty cute. Mion was also a really good person. She didn't care about anyone's age or gender. She was optimistic and outgoing. I was never bored when I was with her. And talking of not getting bored, rambunctious Sakuto was also a good person for that. She was pretty bratty, but that was just the way she interacted with others. Rika-chan was the same way. She didn't speak often, but that means she wasn't always silent. They're my friends. But the hell's that sound? That's such a weird sound. But after hearing of the better untold secrets of Hinamizawa from Oshi-san and Tomitake-san, When I was told about Oyashiro-sama's curse, things started going crazy. Then, hearing of Oshi-san that Mion, Rena, Sakuto and Rika-chan were all suspicious. After that, everyone changed. That's right. It all started getting weird after Oshi-san told me about all that strange stuff. At that time, I really should have not listened to those weird stories. And I even shouldn't have heard about the past incidents from Tomitaki-san the night of the Watanagashi. If I just hadn't gotten that strange sense of curiosity, if I just hadn't. That's right. So that's why they beat Tomitaki-san. That imprudent outsider speaking to the likes of me after everybody went out of their way to keep it a secret from me. They probably beat Oshi-san as well. I didn't think of a sound effect when to do asterisk sounds. For trying to unearth what everybody was warning me was better left buried. Besides that, he was unforgivable for spewing words that made me doubt the others. Of course a guy like that was gonna be Both Tomitaki-san and Oshi-san were nothing but outsiders after all. They were entities who couldn't coexist with the people of Hinamizawa. Those guys should have just fall to Oyashiro-sama's curse and just woo. I wonder why they censored that. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault for not being able to hold back my curiosity. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault, it wasn't their fault, it wasn't their fault, it wasn't their fault. I settled into a daze. It was a lethargic feeling that I had just gotten up, but the ominous chill that haunted me had subsided. I was fine now. I was no longer frightened. I had completely recovered. I go to school tomorrow, right as rain. I'll greet everyone. I'll take part in club activities. It'll definitely be fun. It had to be fun. I was one of them after all. That reminds me, I need to eat those mochi. I hope I'm able to tell which one Rena made. I remember the homework the two brought with them when they visited me. But wow, our club did delivery? That was something else. Actually, yeah, that is true, the club does a delivery service for us. I picked up the package. I dropped on the floor and headed into the living room. It would be nice, I guess, to have some tea with it. They filled my mouth with mochi while drinking tea. Oh, this was quite a delectable situation I was in. Opening up the newspaper wrapping, there were 5 plump red bean paste mochis fit snugly inside. There were letters written on them from left to right on the newspaper, A, B, C, D and E. Now then, they said Rena made one of these. I wonder which one. There wasn't much difference in how they looked. They smelled and appeared about the same. This was a pretty difficult problem. The biggest difference was probably their shape. I wasn't sure what kind of person Mion's grandma was, but Rena had to be different from hers. Looking carefully, I could see one mochi that was made very neatly. So well that just by staring at it, one could tell it stood out. Feels like this challenge depends on whether or not this one is Rena's. Calm down and think even harder. Mion had said her grandma made a ton of them, and I was told to give some out if I remembered correctly. So, that meant 4 of these were from that large batch. Then what about Rena? He probably only made 1. But she probably spent quite a bit of time on it. Meaning, the one Rena had made was this one, E. For a moment, I thought it may have been a trap Mion laid as she knew I'd picked the one. There, we're there. And it had been a trap Mion laid as she knew I'd pick on it, but that probably wasn't the case. I wouldn't be so sure if I knew Mion had made it, but since she said Rena made it, it probably wasn't a trap. Alright, my tea is ready too. I'll start with the defending champ, Mion's grandma. Let's see. Not bad. The smooth bean paste and soft chewy texture left it a little to be desired. The tea I drank afterwards also accentuated the experience. This was quite an exquisite piece of work. Now, how about Rena's? The creation was so delicate one would think it was a high-class Japanese dessert. As I normally had quite the appetite, I was slightly worried about the size of the portion. But, well, first a bite. This was quite a difficult one to judge actually. The ingredients were exactly the same, so there was little difference in flavour. What was different was how it was shaped at the end. So it was to be expected. Though the deciding factor would be presentation and volume. The well-formed and well-sized champion versus Rena, the challenger, of a size you just couldn't get enough of. If only I had one bite of Rena's. I would probably have to wait until I was done eating to make my decision. Maybe there was something hidden inside that could cause an upset. It seems my prediction was right. My tongue touched something. It didn't feel like something edible, so I reached in with my fingers and grabbed it. What? What was this? Before I could fully comprehend what it was, I threw the rest of the mochi I was eating as fast as I could. It slammed against the wall, causing the bean jam to splatter. Then, after sticking for a moment, it slid down to the floor. I was dumbstruck by my own actions. What was I doing? Rena had gone out of her way to make it for me. How could I? Dumbstruck, I looked down at the hand that performed such a vile act. Then I remembered what I had taken out of my mouth. At first I thought it was a hair. Even though it was shorter than Mion's, Rena's hair was still quite long, and it wasn't this short. It was also a bit too hard to be hair. It was thick enough to roll around on my tongue. There was a bit of metallic sheen on one end of it. Ah yes, there was a hole for where thread goes through, just like a sewing needle. Yes, that's right. It looked very much like a sewing needle. Exactly like one. The end was pointed as well, quite sharply. It really did just look like a sewing needle. Huh? What did I mean looked very much like a sewing needle just a bit ago? I couldn't answer. A voice inside me already knew, and let me know by chattering my molars together. I couldn't starve off the terror welling up inside me. Suddenly I tasted something metallic and felt a prickling pain on the back of my throat. I stuck my fingers in the back of my mouth and felt around to see if I was bleeding. Suddenly I felt the urge to vomit. Sharp taste of bile irritated the back of my throat. That would happen if you stuck your fingers down there. I clasped both my hands over my mouth, and after writhing in agony, I was somehow able to hold back the nausea. I was finally able to breathe normally again, but this time my heart was intensely throbbing. Then it finally registered. Exactly what was mixed in with the mochi. Before I could think of the correct word, my hand was already on the move. Splat. Plop. Blot. Like they just combined the two words there. I tossed the rest of the mochi against the wall. The geometric patterns of the scattered bean jam on the wall suddenly evoked a terrible omen in my mind. Also, why would you throw it onto the wall? I know he's being incredibly paranoid at the moment, but seriously, why would you throw food at the wall? After looking away, I dashed out of the hall and flew upstairs to my room, where I stayed under my covers until morning. I clutched my own shoulders. howling madly in a mix of fear, anger, sadness and frustration. This wasn't a threat or a warning, or a reminder, nothing as simple as that. What had happened in Hinamizawa? What is happening in Hinamizawa? What would happen? I didn't know the answer to any of these questions. Where did I break a taboo? Regardless, now Rena and Mion and others, they considered me an enemy. And they thought I should die. I won't let you kill me. Not for such a pointless reason. I fell into a restless sleep as I was crushed by my own negative emotions. It was as if I was being drawn into a billowing bottomless marsh. Ain't like the one in this village. Oh yeah, for just him throwing away all the food. Hit the wall mostly. We're gonna have a horrible time cleaning that up the day later. You have received new tips. What is it? What some edits that they should commit suicide and threat. And we got the achievement hard to swallow. Fun. Sounds fun. Let's save it here.